Hello, historians, and welcome to another Purple Shirt History. Today we'll be talking about the Paper 4 for A Level, European Option, Europe in the Interwar Years 1919 to 1939. This focuses mostly on the rise of the fascist dictators such as Mussolini, Franco, and Hitler, and the interwar years being a period of hope and then ultimately despair, which leads to World War II. Please help your fellow history students find this video by hitting the like button and subscribing. By doing this, it pushes the channel up through the algorithm and we can all get better marks come exam time. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, and I'm sure the person finding this video because of you appreciates it as well. Now, let's get on to the content and see what happened in the interwar years between 1919 and 1939 in Europe.
I'm going to try something new with this shorter video, combining both IGCSE and AL with similar content. So, of course, the AL version will be more detailed, but the Spanish Civil War does appear in both IGCSE and A Level at AL. So I wanted to kind of combine the two exams into one video, as it's not a huge topic. It's definitely something you can use as a subtopic in bigger essays, or, for example, in IGCSE, it may be a Part B question, so worth 6 marks. Where the Spanish Civil War will be in the core content of IGCSE will be in Chapter 3, Steps to World War II. And for A Level, it will be in the Paper 4, Dictators, European Option. Here's a quick timeline. I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on it like I did during the Mussolini video. I was so engrossed with the timeline and one other slide, I was just transfixed and didn't want to move past it. But here's the Second Spanish Republic. We see from the Depression starting, things are going downhill in Spain, and there are kind of sides being formed for a civil war, the Republicans and the Nationalists. Spain is pretty fractious. There are very autonomous regions. If you go to Spain, you'll notice that there are different languages or dialects. There's a lot of variety there, from Catalonia, in the northeast, down to Valencia and, north of Portugal. They have their own kind of dialects and their own customs and stuff. So Spain, as a United Kingdom, it has a lot of variety and a lot of different types of people. This plays into effect for the Spanish Civil War. The war breaks out in 1936. Other major events in 1936 are, of course, remilitarization of the Rhineland, Abyssinia. There are a lot of things going on. If you know a lot of these different things and can write about them in good detail, it'll really help your grade out. The war lasts for 3 years, 36 to 39. The fascists win in 1939, and then Franco just consolidates his power. Why did Franco gain power in 1939? Let me combine just the first 2 points. How big a role was foreign influence? It was huge. One side had the backing of 2 major countries, and the other side didn't. The fascists had the backing of both Hitler and Mussolini, who provided arms, men, money, whereas the democracies didn't really support Republicans. It was very volunteer-based, so there's things called like the Abraham Lincoln Brigade. There were foreign volunteers from France and the UK and other places, like Ernest Hemingway volunteered during the Spanish Civil War. But there was no organized government backing of the democratic government. I mean, Stalin was the biggest backer, which shows you that maybe they were afraid of communism becoming a thing in Spain. So Stalin was there primarily for the same reasons Hitler was, to test out weapons, but there was no organized, real democratic backing for the Republican government. What impact did the Spanish Civil War have on World War II? I'm going to say not much. Feel free to disagree with me. They allow the U-boat fleets and spies and stuff to go through on the Axis side, but other than that, there is no real contribution. There's nothing Spain can do for the Axis powers when it comes to the big show that is World War II. This is just the way that the fascist powers prepare, both logistically, militarily, tactically, for the bigger conflict, and we see the appeasement in full effect by the democracies allowing this kind of thing to happen, which is just one of the other steps with allowing Czechoslovakia to be subsumed and Anschluss with Austria and all these other things. Did Hitler and Mussolini really gain anything from fascist Spain? Nope. Of course, disagree with me. If you say, yeah, they got all this stuff, feel free, but back it with evidence. I'm going to say no. All things considered, Hitler and Mussolini, they gained experience and they gained some military know-how, but All in all, I'm not going to say they gained an awful lot, but of course you may if you back it up. Why did Franco gain power in 1939? We see the Great Depression. We see the international order falling apart. Fascism is on the rise. We look at Asia. We see China being invaded by Japan. We see the Nazis from pretty much day one, first secretly and then overtly, getting ready for another big conflict. We see Abyssinia being invaded by Italy in Africa. There's conflicts breaking out all over the world, and Spain is just another major conflict that is not really high on the priority list of the democracies, the isolationist US, Britain, France. It's a shame. The Civil War is very tragic. A lot of great poetry, Spanish poetry. I remember I had to study this in Spanish class at university. Guernica. I can't recommend learning about the Spanish Civil War enough. It was really a good supplemental bit for your exams, and it can pop up. Trust me, it does all the time. Second, Spanish Republic and its problems. If you're in IGCSE, don't worry about that. Now, this is more for A level. It is very fractious. They can't have stable governments. There's elections all the time, pretty much par for the course for all the European democracies on the continent, like Italy before Mussolini, Weimar government in Germany before Hitler. Just no political stability, and people are looking for answers and not finding them. Spanish reactionary forces look to fascism. We see things like the Catholic Church, the monarchy, all the traditional types of reactionary forces, seeing how weak the government is, the democratic government, and looking to fascism to ward off this socialist menace, this communist threat or whatever. So the reactionary forces, just like in Italy, they see the far left as a threat and they look to fascism because they lose faith in the government. Actions of UK, France, USA, Germany, and Italy. UK and France, this is for the A-level people. They do have some League of Nations document pushed through that says nobody's going to get involved. It's a non-interference document. Of course, Germany and Italy sign it and have no intention of carrying through with the provisions. USA is isolationist, and as I mentioned, Germany and Italy are heavily involved, and they're the main reasons that Franco gains power. Let's look at the particulars. Mussolini really is stagnating. He's been in power for, let's say 14 years or so, give or take. And everything in Italy is kind of stagnating. Standards of living, enthusiasm for fascism. So if you're doing the dictators, paper 4 for A level, you really need to look at the radicalization phase of Mussolini. He just needs to do something, and he sees this as an opportunity to justify his rule. He sends out about 80,000 troops to Spain, volunteers, of course, to fight on the fascist side. So some of them gained some military experience. That's 80,000 men willing to fight for Franco, and that did have a significant impact there. Germany is the one that really gets the most out of this. So Spain is just a sandbox, it is a practice area, a training pitch for blitzkrieg practice, learning how to combine arms such as air power, artillery, infantry, all of this stuff together in this new theory of warfare, mobile warfare that uses multiple branches of service together in unison. Using blitzkrieg and perfecting it in Spain was something that did help Hitler and Germany in World War II. So that is something that you can say this was something that the fascists, the Nazis, got out of this. UK, France, USA government did not help. They were concerned with their own issues at home. The Depression, confidence was low. FDR and the New Deal, it was chugging along, but it didn't pull the US out of the Great Depression. The UK and France had other worries, and they were not going to get involved on any big scale in Spain. The one guy who does counter the fascist is Stalin. Same thing as Hitler. He wants to test out his new weapons. So during the second and third 5-year plans, he is pumping out weapons nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, 366 during a leap year. He knows that there's going to be a fight between him and Nazi Germany. So he builds all of these factories in the middle of nowhere in Siberia, very far from European Russia. So the Germans couldn't reach them. And they're creating new weapons, and Stalin wants to test them out. Again, what impact did the Spanish Civil War have on World War II? Not much. Dress rehearsal for World War II, blitzkrieg on the German side, appeasement. This is also one of those things you need to look at. It led to World War II, not stopping the spread of fascism led to World War II. So the lead up, the run up to World War II, this was another step to it. Spain is in bad shape in 1939. They're not in any position to help the fascist allies in World War II. And the violence the fascist violence, the overthrow. Hitler was a gambler. He helped overthrow Spain, and this just gave him more confidence to keep on going with his war aims. Here's a picture of Franco. Again, he's the only European fascist leader from this time that makes it to old age and doesn't get torn apart by a bloody mob or blow their own head off. I don't think that the fascist governments of Italy and Germany gained a lot from the Spanish Civil War. But again, you're going to have to show both sides. So you are going to have to say, yes, they did in some way. Blitzkrieg, Italian experience for the troops, another ally, political ally. These are all points you can make for it was influential. But to me, it was not one of the things that really led to the fascist powers getting a huge advantage in World War II. There was some for sure, but in the grand scheme of things, even throwing Stalin into the mix, so whatever experience Hitler got, Stalin got some good experience too with his weapon production and to see how they performed. No Spanish active involvement in the war. Mussolini had a very poor economy, and he put a lot of resources into this and Abyssinia and didn't get much back in return. So this was monetarily, you can say, a loss for him. And Franco, he lives to 1975. And after he dies, he gives power to the King of Spain, Juan Carlos II, I believe, and that king immediately restores democracy. If you're in IGCSE, what you need to know is that Spain was a training ground for the German armed forces, especially the Luftwaffe. If you know the Condor Legion, you'll be ahead of most students. They bombed the city of Guernica, which is a small town in the Basque Country in the north of Spain. It becomes a very famous painting by Pablo Picasso. Italy provided troops, but again, it didn't gain much. A-level students, the more you know about the foreign intervention on both sides, like the volunteer brigades, along with things like the League of Nations Non-Interference Pact, domestic forces inside of Spain that were reactionary, like the Falange, which are far-right people in Spain. That's good too. That will really make your essay look quite smart and show that you have a lot of detail. I highly advise you study the Spanish Civil War. It is really useful. You can pick up a lot of points by knowing what the Spanish Civil War was and how it affected things. Some people just overlook it, and I think that's a big shame because if you're struggling to think of points for Chapter 3 in IGCSE or for the dictator's question at AL, you can really look at the Spanish Civil War and have a nice paragraph or so that can really make the difference between getting, an A star at IGCSE to an A or, an A to a B at A level. And if you know it well, it can really serve you when you take your exam.